Hey everyone, this is Dan Bell, and welcome to the Cutting Room Floor. This is episode number 17, and I'm going to be doing a director's commentary for the Rolling Acres Mall video, one of the most popular videos in the Dead Mall series, and probably my most interesting experience filming the episodes that I've done thus far. So the first thing about Rolling Acres is it has a very kind of creepy, dark kind of atmosphere to it. You know, I was familiar with the Craigslist killers. I love reading about serial killers and stuff like that. So I was familiar with that whole thing. I had no idea that they had actually buried one of their victims behind the mall. And then there was also a copper thief who was electrocuted, which is in this story, this news story right here. And then recently, motorists were driving by and found a woman hanging from a tree next to the mall. So the whole area out near the mall is in Rolling Acres in Akron is just it's a very kind of creepy place because everything is pretty much closed down, abandoned. So it's just a creepy place. I can't really describe it. I mean, you're looking at it here. I mean, it's very it looks like a nuclear wasteland or something, but I got out to the mall. I'll tell you about getting out there. So I'm in Baltimore, so driving out to Akron, Ohio, it's a pretty far drive. I think it was like 6 hours, 6.5 hours, something like that. My plan was to drive out, get a hotel, and then get up really early the next morning and go to the mall. And I was so hyped up driving out thinking about filming this video. I was like, I'm just going to go as soon as I get to Akron. So that's exactly what I did. I was so worried that when I got there, I wouldn't be able to find a way in. But for some reason, I was under this assumption. I had read an article or something. I think it was in one of the local Akron papers or something like that. It had been a recent article, and it basically said that the police had just stopped patrolling Rolling Acres because it was such a problem. They just couldn't keep up with it, so they stopped patrols. And I was like, that made me feel a little more confident, I guess. Little did I suspect that practically the entire force would be there to get me out. But I did kind of figure out how I got caught. A lot of people think because I parked right by the entrance that I went into. Now, the reason I did that, and that was not, by the way, not the reason that I got caught, and I'll tell you why. Where I parked was behind the mall. So this is actually that shot with the cinema entrance. This is actually right next to that. So it's kind of like a little service area in here where I'm here right now. A kid on a bike. I couldn't figure out which way to go in. And this kid on a bike who was riding around the parking lot, I asked him, I said, is there a way to get in here? And he said, yeah, go back in there and you'll find it. So I found this right here, and I was so relieved to look in here and see that I could get into the mall, because that was a long drive. It's a waste of gas if I didn't get the video. But basically, when I got into this area, when I went in right here, there is a business still connected to this mall. It's in one of the old anchors. And it's a self-storage place. And you would think, looking at the parking lot, that there would be no way that could ever be like a business here, but there really is a business here. So anyway, the owner of that business installed cameras facing towards the mall. So basically, that's how I was had. He saw me on the cameras and called the police. Luckily, though, the timing couldn't have been more perfect. So I actually got everything I needed. And by the time the police found me, I was ready to leave anyway. So it was a great ending to the video. Climactic ending. Couldn't have been any better. But I also got everything I needed. So it worked out perfectly. I didn't get arrested. I didn't get fined. It was perfect. This right here is a really weird scene. So when I went in, this was in the summer, last summer when I went to shoot this. And when I went into the food court area here, there's like this bank of fog just like lingering over the floor. Like about 3 feet off the floor, there's like this big, thick bank of fog. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And you can see all the condensation on the glass and on the mirrors there. But you can kind of still see it here. Didn't show up really well on camera, which is unfortunate. I would have really liked to have got a better shot of that. But in this next shot here, you'll see in a minute, you'll actually, if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see the fog. It actually shows up pretty well after we get this shot of this picnic place sign. There's a video on YouTube that somebody, I don't know if it was a man or woman, took of this food court the day the mall closed. The mall closed on October 31st, 2008. I think that's the correct date. The reason they closed, and I'll get to it just 1 second here. This is what I'm talking about. Right here on the right, you can see that fog there on that where that green column is. It was pretty dramatic seeing it in person, but it didn't show up very well on film, unfortunately. So anyway, what I was saying here. Look at this. I love this this scene right here. It was weird because when I went in, I had seen all the pictures, that photographers have taken. I was so excited to see all this stuff. Like I was just. This is like Rolling Acres is like the most infamous mall, dead mall in America. I mean, it's like a representation of what is happening to malls. So for me, it was very exciting to be able to go in and see this place. It was just really cool. But what I was saying, there somebody on YouTube took a video of that food court on the last day the mall was open. It is the creepiest video. It's only about maybe 30 seconds long. I'll actually link it right now in the right-hand corner. It is the creepiest video I have ever seen on YouTube. It just creeps me out because you can hear the music echoing, but there's nobody in the mall, and the food court's completely empty. And it's just the most bizarre, creepy looking. It's almost like a looming disaster is coming. And it certainly did, because what happened to this mall, the reason they closed, they couldn't afford their electricity bill. So on the last day, the power company came in and they cut the power to the mall. And the people who were left in the mall who had businesses, they just packed up and walked out. That was it. That's kind of hard to believe. And at the same time, I would have loved to have been there to see that. I know it sounds terrible, but that is something that is a feeling that can't be described. The reason I'm so into these malls, I don't think I've ever really explained it, but and I don't even really know myself. I'm not really sure if I really know. There's something about a place that was once so popular that you couldn't move when you went there. Like, you couldn't park. There was no parking spaces. You could barely walk around. There's people everywhere. To go from that to this, it's the stark contrast, I think, is what I am most fascinated by. And the fall from grace, and it's endlessly interesting to me. And it's also something that I've chosen to document, because I really do believe that 20 years from now, when these videos are, they'll always be available, there's going to be real interest in seeing this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of interest now. People watch them now and they're like, oh, this is so fascinating. But to me, I just feel like it's important to document this piece of our society. Malls were so important to so many people. When I was a teenager, I went to the mall. So I would go to the mall for, to eat, to hang out with friends, to meet people, dates. I mean, it was, you went to the mall. It was a social gathering place. And, this was in the 90s. This was before the internet and Facebook and all this other stuff that we have today. Facebook was going to the mall to meet your friends and hang out, and it was a gathering place. I don't hold the there are people who become emotional when they watch these videos. I don't hold that kind of adoration, but for these places, I am more fascinated with the waste that they represent, and the excesses that we used to have in America, where the bigger mall, you just keep building these malls and building bigger and bigger malls, and it all comes to an end eventually, because there's always something there that will replace it. Malls, to me, especially today, with the internet, I mean, the internet has changed the way we socialize. It's changed the way we shop. It's changed everything. So malls, when you have a town that has 4 or 5 malls, 10 years ago, those towns now only have 2 malls and maybe a third that's getting ready to close. So it all balances out. It'll all balance out. I don't know if there'll ever be a time where there are no malls. I don't think any of us watching this right now will ever see that in our lifetime. It may happen in the future. I don't know. But right now, and I love, there's planters here. I love those like 1970s era plastic white planters. But I just feel like it's important to have this stuff documented. And that's why I do these videos. And I really do enjoy doing these videos. And I love going to dead malls. Now, this was more of an urban exploration video in a mall, because it was, I was like, it was lacking a lot of stuff that, like, you would see in like an open mall. Maybe I'm not making any sense. This is what happens when I have to talk for 28 minutes on a cutting room floor. It was because when I go to dead malls that are open, they're clean. You're not going to slip on anything. This was more of an adventure. It was like a true adventure. Even looking at this shot here, I get dizzy. I don't like looking at that. I knew when I shot that, because of my own thing with heights, when I watch YouTube, if people are like, put their camera over the edge of something or whatever, it freaks me out. So I kind of did that, because I knew it would affect people who had similar vertigo issues while watching YouTube videos. But yeah, I look at it, I'm like, ugh. But I was actually not close to the edge, so I think I put my arms out or something. I can't remember. Coming up here, I mistakenly said that this at the end here was the movie theater, and it looks like a theater. It doesn't look like you would walk up to the window and buy a ticket, but it's actually not where the cinema was. That is actually where a travel agency was. The cinema was actually at the other end of the mall on the first floor where we just had come from this shot here. I don't know. The railings are all gone. Scrappers have been in here. I don't know. I have seen a couple of videos where people went here back in the day when it first closed. It was literally wide open. So the doors, windows, everything were broken. There were people riding dirt bikes through this mall. So just to give you an idea of the lack of security or police, whatever, there was none of that. It was like the Wild West. I mean, you could just come in and, do whatever you wanted, which people did. I mean, they came in and bringing guns in here and shooting the skylights out with their guns, which is, I mean, it just sounds insane, but yeah, it was wide open. You could get in. When I went, there were still a few places to get in, because once I was inside, I actually saw a couple places where I could have gotten in, but you just can't. From the outside, it's so overgrown you can't see anything. So, but once you get inside, I could see a couple places I could escape if need be. I will say, when I was in there, I was like kind of freaking out. Not freaking out like totally, but this building makes very weird noises. It almost sounds like a ghost ship. I mean, that's what it reminds me of, like a ship that's been abandoned and it makes noises. I went on an abandoned ship a couple years ago. It was an abandoned it was some kind of a cargo ship. I can't remember. It was in Virginia, and went on the ship, and it just made the eeriest noises I've ever heard. I mean, it really like made very strange, eerie noises. It reminded me so much of this mall, because the mall building makes the strangest, eeriest, creepiest noises I've heard. I would love to go back and just put a recorder on, because the noises were absolutely wonderful. As somebody who enjoys sound, there's so much that could be done with those. Beautiful. It's almost like the symphony of an abandoned building that's in complete and utter decay. This fountain, by the way, like I said, it looked like a sunshine in the middle of a cloudy day or something. I don't remember what I said in the video, but this fountain is awesome. I mean, that 70s orange tile, when you're down the corridor and you see this fountain, it's unbelievable. Now, if you look in this shot, ahead of the fountain is the section that I did not get to. It's a small section, it's not very large, so there's not really much that I missed. But yeah, it was literally like maybe a couple hundred feet, and then you would get to the opening of Sears. And when I interviewed the two people out front, they're standing in front of the Rolling Acres Mall, the main entrance. That would come in, the first thing you would see is this fountain. I've done so much research on this building after I left. I really should have been doing the research before I went, but I am endlessly fascinated by this place, and there's kind of some talks. I'm hoping to go back with permission. So we'll see what happens. I'm hoping, but if I do go back, it's going to be a really interesting video. So stay tuned on that. I'm really hoping that happens. If you're not following me on Facebook, by the way, it's This Is Dan Bell on Facebook. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at This Is Dan Bell to stay ahead of the game, I guess. So anyway, here is the corridor. I don't know what this anchor ahead would have been. So this mall would have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 anchors, maybe like 5 anchors, or maybe 4 anchors, and then they built on another. I think it was a Target they opened. Well, they built a Target on the property, which I think is where the storage place is now. But man, this building was just creepy, and you could hear like birds outside, like birds singing, and just such a strange experience. This was probably the worst of the spaces that I walked into. It was just all black mold and water dripping and just miserable inside of this place. I think this was probably a Suncoast, if I'm getting it right. It was probably a Suncoast, but I don't know for sure. The one regret I have about this video, and I'll discuss it with you guys, and I'll tell you what it is. When I shot this video, I didn't have any subscribers. I mean, I maybe had like 2,000 subscribers. There wasn't a lot of people watching my stuff, and with YouTube, you don't expect success. You don't expect to grow. You don't expect any of that stuff. It happens. And you're like, oh, wow, I can't believe it. But when I shot this, I used that clip from Ironside, the Quincy Jones clip of the music from, people know it from Kill Bill, whenever Uma Thurman was getting ready to attack somebody, they would play that song and kind of zoom in on her face. So I used it for the police scene, and I say scene, but it's actually it's just filming. So I used that little clip. I think it's like 12 or 13 seconds, and I was unable to monetize the video, but I really didn't care because I thought, well, whatever. And now I care because so many people have seen it, and it would have been. It would have helped pay for the trip. That would have been good. But one shining light that happened a few months ago, a Japanese production company approached me and licensed the entire video for a TV show that they're doing in Japan. I believe it's called American Ruins. They were supposed to get back to me at some point and tell me or show me what they had done. But I haven't heard from them or seen anything. So yeah, but I'm glad that people from, all over the world can see this. This is why I do this. Because you don't have this in Japan. You know what I mean? I mean, you don't have abandoned malls or malls that are dying. Malls are such an American thing, They're such a staple of Americana. So you don't really hear about malls having trouble like in the UK or whatever. So when I get people from all over the world who write me, or they're like, I can't believe this is happening to malls, or, our mall is doing great. It's packed full of people. It's always interesting to hear from those people. So I think this was probably a Rolling Acres sign that they had up in their office. So this was the security office. At one time the Akron Police Department had a substation there, so they would have cops in the mall. But then they were having trouble keeping them I think they were having trouble paying security or paying for the police. Maybe the police were getting an extra salary working at the mall. So it was just, the place went downhill so fast. But everybody I've talked to who, Rolling Acres was doing really well in the 70s and 80s, and then it just kind of started going downhill in the 90s and 2008, it just closed up. Very unceremoniously. I mean, when your power's cut off and your tenants just pack up and leave, that's incredible. That really is incredible. And here's the big scene. So when I was walking here, I kept hearing like little... it sounded like a group of people. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh God, I'm dead. Like, I'm going to turn the corner. I'm either going to see a bunch of like young people or I'm going to be like confronted with whatever. But when I saw that flashlight, I was like, oh, this is over. And I was sure that I was going to be, I was almost positive that I was going to be arrested. I should have left the camera rolling while I was talking to them, explaining to them what I was doing. The police were very nice, but they were just so perplexed as to why I would drive from Baltimore to Akron to film an abandoned mall. I don't think one of them understood anything that I was talking about. So, they're like, you drove from Baltimore to film a mall? Like, they just couldn't believe it. But they were all very professional and courteous, which I appreciated considering I was a low-life trespasser. I think it helped that I had a camera in my hand when they caught me. But, yeah, man, I can't imagine, like, if they had a dog. They did bring a dog with them. It could have been horrible. But you can see here they completely blocked my car in. And then this black SUV here is the owner of the storage place, which is off camera here to the right. He asked me, I'm trying to remember what happened. I think he asked me, he was like, how did you figure out how to get in the mall? I think he asked me that. I can't really remember. And it must suck for him to have this business here and have to deal with people constantly going in. Now, what I've heard is that recently they have completely secured the building and they have installed cameras throughout the building. So they're really cracking down on people going in, which is unfortunate, but I can understand where they're coming from. But don't blame me for that, because some people have blamed me for that happening because of this video, and it's like, oh, come on. It's like if that were the case, they would have shut the mall. They would have closed it up a week after I put it up on Facebook. Or not Facebook, YouTube. Tim and Anna Lee, that's the couple from the beginning that I met. I actually interviewed them after I finished filming. All right, you guys. Well, thank you very much for watching. I'm glad I got through this in one piece, and I'll be back next week.